As we begin the second segment of this 5-segment Waterloo, Wisconsin 1938 video, we're back at the Waterloo Canning Factory, which was located just west of town, and showing all the employees coming out of the building. Once again, I want to point out that I'm aware of the fact that as we move along in here, the video and the audio have a hard time staying in sync with each other, so bear with me as we try to deal with that. The next scene we're going to see is going to be in a little bit here, but it's the scene of the railroad trestle that occurs as you travel 19 towards Marshall. It's just beyond where the canning factory used to be, which is on the left side of the road across from where Van Holt's is today. There's a trestle being built, and modern machinery today are a little different from what they had then. It won't be too long and we'll be looking at a jewelry store in Waterloo. Al Wedeward's jewelry store was next, couple doors down from the F&M Bank on West Madison Street. There's quite a scene in here where a guy does some window shopping, goes in and ends up buying a diamond ring, comes out and displays it, and then some close-ups of Al Wedeward, which is kind of interesting. A lot of people in town knew him. And beyond that, you'll see a full frontal shot of Al Wedeward. One of the next things you're going to see beyond that is the gas station that was on the Four Corners. The building still remains. It's no longer a gas station. It hasn't been for a few years, but it's a regular landmark in Waterloo. It's been there for a long, long time. Interestingly enough, there's two people in there that I knew, and some of you will. As the car pulls up, you'll see two people come out of the gas station. I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself. There's Al Wedeward, but two people come out of the gas station, two service attendants, back in the days of full-service gas stations. One of the two people is my uncle, Scotty Bealey. He goes around to the rear of the car. The other fellow is Howard Wedeward, who goes to work on washing the windshield, and then, of course, they check the fluid levels for the customer, and they also pull the dipstick, oil dipstick, and go over to the driver's window and show him, how the oil levels are. So that's a kind of an interesting episode in there. Beyond that, we're going to see a video of a young lady that goes in and sits down inside the station there in the doorway. But after that, we're going to have a glimpse of their bulk petroleum, or Badger Petroleum, bulk truck, and Howard and Scotty are there. Howard's the one with the coin changer hanging on his belt, and he's the father of the Wedeward family there in town. Dick Wedeward, Tom Wedeward, Chester Wedeward, Susie Wedeward, and so on. Howard's on the right, Scotty's on the left. Following this, we're going to see a scene up North Monroe Street at the Toggery clothing store. The scene depicts a guy checking out the clothing in the window, deciding he needs a new suit. So he goes in, and the first guy that he comes out with and stands in front is a guy by the name of Ernest Hoggle, who owned the store at that time. And then the next fellow that you see coming out of the front door with the customer is Harley Blackie Deppie. Blackie is his nickname, of course. And Blackie ended up owning the store after he bought it from Ernest Hoggle. And there's an episode here about him, how he looks in his new suit, and it ends with him with a fancy hat on and walking up the street. And of course, this building is on North Monroe Street, just down the street from the Failinger store. There he goes up the street, if I'm not ahead of myself. The next thing you're going to see is a Girl Scout picnic. It's identified with the Girl Scout emblem occurring. The girls are up in the Fireman's Park, and at the backside, almost near where the carousel is today, the backside of the parking lot, up in the trees, there used to be I guess you'd call it a barbecue. It's a brick thing, that fireplace type thing. You can see it in the background there. And there's a bunch of Girl Scouts there that are having a wiener roast, I guess. One of the gals there is identifiable to me. Soon you'll see a gal sitting there eating a hot dog. and she really chomps on it. Dark-haired gal. You can see her cooking her hot dog and then eating it, and that's Betty Sullivan. She's a mother of Bill and Dan Sullivan, and her daughters are gone from Waterloo, but Gail was the oldest daughter. She looks just exactly like Gail did when Gail was of that age. Following this is some kind of a ladies' ceremony. Looks to be a patriotic recognition of the flag of some sort. I don't know. It was done in the park, over on the other end of the park, over in the beer garden end of the park, up beyond third base. Oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. We gotta wait till the Boy Scouts appear on the scene. Here they come, and I'm probably behind myself with that, but there's the Boy Scouts. And following this will be the gals up, a number of ladies up there doing some kind of a patriotic thing, and then they walk around behind the beer garden, which is that building up behind third base, up on the top of the steps. And I'm going to kind of guess as to when these next scenes begin to appear now, so bear with me. I got to get ahead of them with my audio, but I don't want to get too far ahead. Okay, I'm going to tell you about a grocery store that you're going to see next. It's obviously downtown Waterloo. I'm guessing that it's on the North Monroe Street on the left-hand side of the street, I think. I can't really identify it. It might be the store that Carl Freitag operated at one time, and later on Charlie and Hilda Fisher operated. I hope I'm not too far ahead of myself here. The picture shows a young gal apparently wants a half of a watermelon. So the store owner's out there, and I guess he figures the only way to take care of that half a watermelon is to convince the girl to drop it on the ground, which eventually she does, and then she's got her half a watermelon. So he packs her up and sends her home. That's before we see another one of Waterloo's dogs. And some more scenes of simply the streets of Waterloo, I'll label it. Numerous people just seen walking up the sidewalks. Next scene you're going to see is the Waterloo Bakery, which must have been a very prosperous bakery. It would have been located on East Madison, past the drugstore, going east past the drugstore. And as you'll see them here in a minute or two, they've got their own bakery truck and they're delivering baked goods. So apparently they're doing pretty well because they're hauling around somewhere. Kloster and Prey, the proprietor. And the bakery remained there for some time, different ownership, but of course in recent years it's gone, and that's kind of too bad. The next scene you're going to see is the Wilbur Lumber Company. The Wilbur Lumber Company was on the second block of South Jackson, on the right-hand side of the road. It's been taken over by a great big Perry's building now, but it was a big lumber yard, and you'll see them when we get to that scene. You're going to see them stacking some bundles of wood shingles, and shortly after that they stand out front, and I can identify two of the three people. The guy on the left is Ernest Biffer Scribner, and the guy on the right, when they pose for the camera, the guy on the right is Cecil Christopher. Not the gal in the middle, I'm sorry, is Cecil Christopher. Following that, some shots from first the train coming into Waterloo, and then next the Jordan Coal Yards, which used to be right across the street here from the lumber yard, across Jackson Street, that is, from the lumber yard. The houses in Waterloo were pretty much all coal-fired. An awful lot of coal moved around Waterloo. And so there was several places in town that sold coal, Jordan Lumber Yards being one of them. The Jordan Lumber Yards were located just south of where the Burns family lived for many, many years on South Jackson Street. And there's some scenes in here of the trucks loading the coal and backing the coal in under the overhang there, and unloading coal from the train cars. And old man Jordan, I can't think of his first name. The next scene is going to be about some cattle that really have us puzzled. This pretty much has to be under the basement, or under the bottom level of one of the stores on East Madison Street. Down there across from the City Hall, about that vicinity, not across from the bowling alley. These cattle are coming out from underneath there, and apparently they are then butchered underneath there, and you'll see them later out coming out in white packages as they're butchered and cut and wrapped. And the top level of this, or the ground floor from the street side, is the Zimbrick meat market, and you'll see them loading that meat out into probably the guy that owned the cattle, into his truck. Following that, as you see that scene, you could look just up the street that you're looking west on East Madison. You happen to notice a buggy there, a delivery cart right there behind the guys loading the meat, horse-drawn delivery cart. And the building just to the back of them is currently the MT Bar. It's a tavern. You'll be able to see them rolling a barrel of beer into the tavern pretty soon. And after those are over with, they'll show two more stores. They'll show the Royal Blue Store, which I do not know exactly where that was. And then they'll also, we think it's on North Monroe Street also, but then you're also going to see the Arcade Tavern. And try as we might, we cannot figure out where the Arcade Tavern was. And so that's about the end of it for the second segment of Waterloo, Wisconsin.